been here for years. But I can't go back. If I have to, I'll spend the rest of my life right here on the street.
She's leaving home.
The streets are far from an ideal place to live. Then why are so many runaways drawn there? Join us next on The World Tomorrow for Kids on the Run.
This week on The World Tomorrow, David Hulme.
Thank you for joining us. The runaway child has attracted a lot of media attention. Some of it accurate, some exaggerated. Major cities in the world's richest nations have runaway populations. And as one expert told me, that says something about us as people. What does it say about us? And what can parents do to prevent children leaving home to live on the streets? These are some of the issues we'll explore in this week's program, Kids on the Run. We'll talk to runaways and their counselors, discuss the dimensions of the problem, and find out why children run away in the first place. There are established values that will prevent the runaway phenomenon. We begin with a look at the world through the eyes of a young lady we'll call Sunny.
But my real mom, she died when I was really young. And my real dad, he couldn't take care of me because, he was a junkie. And so my grandparents been taking care of me ever since I was, 2 years old, maybe.
Sunny, who's now 16, lost her biological parents to death and drug addiction. And while her new parents supplied the physical needs of life, Sunny still ran away. Why?
Well, because my parents, they were spoiling me too much. And didn't really want me to realize my own independence, and that's what I wanted. It's like I would always do everything bad, like I'd go to jail just so they'd punish me, and instead they'd buy me a new telephone. So that's why.
Sunny had her physical needs taken care of, but not her emotional ones, she said. Another young runaway we'll call Steve was less fortunate in the material sense, though he has something else in common with Sunny.
Yeah, when I was about, say, between the age of 8 and 10, I think it was 10, my mom, they say she was into drugs, but she hardly ever took any drugs around me. That's why, I never knew. But November 8th, November 7th, I can recall that I came back from the store and she was in the car yelling. And so my brothers and my sisters told me that she had OD'd. And about several hours later, she was gone, passed away.
Once again, a disrupted family at an early age. And as we're about to hear, severe physical abuse. Both of these conditions play their part in creating the runaway syndrome.
Sometimes they double beated us, two at the same time. And I remember one time my brother came from school, my uncle was hiding behind a door with a whip, and he hit him across the neck, and there's nothing I can do. I was too small to do anything.
Steve has suffered enormously in his short 16 years. Like many others in this situation, he's already attempted suicide. As a result, he spent a year in a mental institution. He described his uncle's violence in more detail.
Yes, he abused us. To this day, it's like I don't like him. I don't even want to associate with him because the stuff that he did to us wasn't even necessary. Like when he threw me in the basement for about 4 months. Now no kid. I was like 6 years old. No kid deserved that. My father told me that, y'all deserve that kind of stuff, and that just makes you want to explode.
One of the established Judeo-Christian values we seem to have forgotten says, fathers, do not provoke your children lest they become discouraged. In the United States, 3 children a day die at the hands of their violent parents or guardians. But why do parents let this kind of thing happen in the first place?
Adolescence, as I think we know in the best of circumstances, is a painful time for the best parents. And I think that stress added to, I believe, and I'm biased here, I do believe there's a whole generation of parents who are more preoccupied with their own needs, their own careers, and their own wants than they are with their children. And I question sometimes why they bother to have children.
Brian Cahill is president of Hathaway Children's Services, which provides programs for vulnerable, multiple-problem children.
And there's a lot of parents, as we know tragically, who are involved in their own alcohol problems and drug problems. So you have a whole generation of kids, I think, who are not poor, who did not grow up without the basic resources, but who grew up without much attention, who grew up with almost no limits. It's a big issue. As a result, grew up with a terrible sense of self-worth, no self-worth.
Although poverty is sometimes cited, it isn't the reason children run away. Children in poor countries don't end up abandoned on the streets as they do in rich countries. If they are on the streets in third world countries, they're with their families. No, this is something beyond lack of wealth. A problem that's critical for many in the Western world today is the absence of feeling positive about the self, of having a real identity. We talk about dysfunctional families as if they were a small category, but in fact many of our families are not functioning as they should. What we heard from Steve and Sonny is only the tip of the iceberg, because what some young people have to suffer is almost beyond belief. You can find a runaway generation in London and Copenhagen, Sydney and Toronto. In the United States, their average age is 15, and 70% of them are white. Twice as many girls as boys run away. According to U.S. government surveys done in the late 70s and early 80s, about 1 to 1.5 million children run away each year. We asked Gary Yates, director of the Los Angeles Children's Hospital High Risk Youth Program, to give us some insight concerning those statistics.
I think that it's not a well understood figure because the rest of that study indicated that most of those kids, probably 3/4 of them, go home within a few days, probably 72 hours. So you have a lot of young people who run away and maybe need a place to stay that's safe for a day or two, but then who are going to go home. What people then talk about are the subset of young people who end up staying on the streets, living on the streets in sort of a catch-as-you-catch-can type of existence. And that's probably in the area of 200 to 250,000 if you look across the country. And it's concentrated. I think it's concentrated in several major metropolitan areas in the United States.
Those areas are Los Angeles, especially Hollywood, San Francisco, Seattle, New York, Fort Lauderdale, and Houston. A lot of kids get to these cities by traveling the truck routes across the country. But if they stay on the streets much longer than a few days, their dreams of freedom and independence soon fade.
The streets are not a pleasant place to live on over time. It may be exciting in the beginning, but most young people who stay out there get hurt. If you've ever been on the streets in Hollywood at night, it's a pretty frightening experience. There's a lot of crime here. There's a lot of poverty in Hollywood. I don't think that people realize, and out of that, a lot of drug dealing in Hollywood.
One of the worst aspects of life on the streets is prostitution. Natasha Goodwin is a case manager with the Los Angeles Youth Network. I asked her if most of the runaways who engage in so-called survival sex have a strong link with previous sexual abuse.
Very strong link. If a child has had to live on the streets more than a month, it's very likely that they have had to engage in some sort of survival sex to get by.
Which in turn means?
Prostitution, living with a sugar daddy, living with an older man or woman that at first seems to just want to take care of them, and then after a few days of feeding and clothing them, expects sex in return. A lot of different situations like that.
Now, you might wonder what kind of person would take advantage of such children. Who preys on these young victims of the broken home?
Yeah, regrettably, just about a cross-section of the U.S. society exploits the young people on the streets. Very wealthy people, very poor people, the dregs of society, the pillars of society use these kids. Right now in Hollywood, the peak times for prostitution are the morning rush hour, noontime, and the evening rush hour. And those are business people picking up young people. And that's the best money, so that's the best time. And it's a statement, I think, partially about who we are as a society. We need to recognize that.
What does that say about the users? It says that human beings unrestrained by a moral code will defile other human beings without a second thought. It's gratification with no regard for anyone but self. And it's a shame and a disgrace that we allow it to happen on our streets. For some unfortunate runaways, survival sex is a last desperate effort to gain the basic necessities of life. They simply have to sell their bodies. It's estimated that there are some 600,000 girls and 300,000 boys working as prostitutes at any given day in the United States. But why would a child with a history of sexual abuse agree to more of the same?
One of the things that happens for many young people who are repetitively sexually abused is they learn over time to disassociate from their body. They literally can't feel physically pain or sex. So for them to be involved in prostitution, first of all, they don't feel it while they're having sex. They're numb to it. Second of all, they feel that they've been whores, if you like. They'll talk about once a whore, always a whore. They were treated as a whore in their minds and their families. And so being involved in it on the streets is really no different.
It's a heartbreaking situation, but it's not completely hopeless. The life of the runaway can be changed for the better. This free, newly published special report, Runaways Solving the Problem, takes an in-depth look at this issue. It contains helpful advice for parents and children alike, and shows not only the dimensions of the problem, but what we can all do to help. The first chapter, Getting Off the Streets, explains the realities of living on the streets of a big city and points the way to the solution. Behind the Bright Light takes a look at the tragic story of Shelley, a runaway who paid the ultimate price. The new breed of runaway shows how widespread the problem is, from Australia to Europe, to Africa, to North America. Here's a section on child abuse with advice if you're a victim. There are things you can do. And another important section shows parents how to really love their children. And there's a valuable section for teens that gives some hard, accurate advice concerning the runaway situation. This special report, Runaways Solving the Problem, is yours free for the asking. Be sure to request your copy. Along with it, if you're not already a subscriber, we'll be sending you a free subscription to the Plain Truth magazine. It's published in 7 languages and read by millions worldwide. The Plain Truth is a family and news magazine that gives biblically based answers to today's problems. You'll find articles to help you live more successfully and give you a better insight on how to improve your family life. Your subscription is absolutely free of charge, and you can have it for as long as you'd like. There's really no magazine like it. I'll be offering both of these publications again at the end of today's program. Now let's continue with our subject, kids on the run. It seems runaways will do almost anything to get the attention every human being needs. At the beginning of the program, Sunny said she'd even go to jail. And most potential runaways are like that, desperately striving for a parent to take notice, to recognize they exist.
Yes, it's looking for attention. See me. I'll do anything it takes for you to pay attention to me, to care about me. I'll do bad things if that's what it takes. Because when I do bad things, you pay attention to me. So they get this message. Because when they're not praised when they do good things, or they're just ignored. And so if they do bad things, they get into drugs, or they fail in school, the parents all of a sudden pay attention, even if negative attention is better than no attention at all.
Now let's come to some solutions to the runaway problem. What can be done to prevent more runaway children? For a start, we have to recognize some painful truths about ourselves. One is that many of us are fast becoming totally self-indulgent. Self-indulgence and selfishness conflict with care for others.
We live, unfortunately, in a time of real self-centeredness, selfishness, and I think parents end up focusing on their own needs, partially because of pressure, partially because of perhaps those needs were never met when they were children.
Recognizing our own capacity for selfishness is an important step forward in truly caring for our children. When parents are deeply committed to their children's emotional growth and really care, runaway kids don't happen. One of the difficulties is that some of us don't believe our children are that important.
The reason this country was so slow in dealing with child abuse is because to deal with it, you had to invade family privacy, and that's sacred tradition in this country. I have the right to do whatever I want inside my own house.
But the sickening reality is that some of our neighbors are abusing their children. That abuse can be neglect, or physical violence, or sexual interference.
If the data is true, if some of the surveys have been done, it means that people in our neighborhoods are sexually abusing their children. That's hard for us to deal with. It's hard for me to think of that in my own neighborhood there would be, but it's clear to me, having worked in Hollywood for 7 years, it's true.
In Toronto, half of young runaways are victims of domestic sexual abuse. In Britain, one survey showed that 70% of sexual abuse was committed by other family members. As we've heard, that can cause a person to become disassociated from reality. These children don't feel they're worth anything. It's a myth that they're just bad kids, and that discipline at home is the main reason they run. These kids are starved for real affection, strangers to genuine parental love. Children need time. They need to be looked in the eye and listened to. That's a major way to establish a loving bond between parent and child. Sonny didn't have that.
The child wasn't really loved or cared for emotionally, which is what she wanted, what she was crying for, what every human being wants. And she was just given things, provided with material goods, but never given the sense that they really loved her or cared about her or how she was feeling, what was going on with her.
With the kinds of problems runaways face, you might well ask, is there any hope of rehabilitation?
Well, Steve is a good case in point. When he first came into us, we had a little bit of his background on paper, and he had spent some time in a mental institution, had a very severe abusive background, and we thought this kid was going to be a real problem, real difficult to place and real difficult to work with. And as you could see, he seems like a very normal, articulate, intelligent, rehabilitated, you can say, young man.
There has to be openness on the part of someone to work with these children, to give them a chance. Now, some might say tough love is the answer. Just lay down the law firmly enough and that will solve the problem. But tough love can have its drawbacks.
I think what's often not told to parents in the tough love approach is that if you take that stance, you may never see a young person again. They may leave. The other thing on top of that is that sometimes without meaning it, families tell young people to run away. They'll say things like, if you don't like it here, you can always leave. They don't mean to leave, but especially teenagers tend to see things in a black and white world and take it very literally and leave. So parents ought to be cautious, I think, about using those approaches and know that one outcome is you may not see your child again.
Sadly, there are parents who want it that way. Often when parents are called about their runaway son or daughter, they'll say, you can keep him, or don't send her back to me. At that point, the child has really become a throwaway. But even then, if someone will care, it's not hopeless. In the case of Sonny, she now works for a leading U.S. newspaper, and she's ready to help others. I asked her what she was going to do for our own kids one day.
For my kids, well, I'm gonna sit down whenever they have a problem. I'm gonna talk to them, and I'm gonna show them the love the right way that I think it is.
So it is possible for some runaways to make a new start.
Well, I got a job and I'm going to school. My grading period wasn't that good, but that's not going to make me stop. I want to be an actor or a fighter pilot for the Air Force. So I'm going to keep on trying till I get older. You know, be something. I'm something now, but I'm going to be somebody, you know. Hopefully I'll get my own family.
Now, you might say these young people are exceptions to the rule. To a degree, that's true. Some runaways don't survive at all. Most can't break out of the cycle of broken home, alcohol, drugs, violence, and sexual abuse. Sadly, the vast majority continue to spiral downwards. Yet some, like Sonny and Steve, are on their way to breaking the cycle because somebody cared enough. When someone finally does take time to help unconditionally, positive results happen. Children are dependent beings. They need the same things we all do. All children need love, encouragement, interest, care. To throw them on society's trash heap like so much debris is to tragically misunderstand parental responsibility. It's also to deny them every human being's true potential, because we're all made in God's image. Let me ask you, as a parent or grandparent or as a child, where did you fit in today's program? I had to ask myself that after interviewing these young people and their counselors. What am I doing or not doing as a parent to contribute to my children's success or failure? Am I and are you willing to act early enough in a child's life to prevent the runaway phenomenon from happening? If you, as a teacher or friend, suspect a child is being treated in a way that will eventually make them run, do something now. Talk to their parents or the authorities, and if it's you who's causing the problem, get help. So often in these brief 30-minute programs, we're forced to come face-to-face with the primary source of Western values and Judeo-Christian ethics. I'm speaking of the Bible. It does address these very issues. For example, it speaks of turning the hearts of the fathers to the children and the hearts of the children to their fathers. That's both a prophecy and a warning that if the family fabric isn't repaired, more than social destruction will result. You can read about it in Malachi chapter 4 and verse 6. Then there's the golden rule, the heart and core of right human relationships. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Much of the Bible is an explanation of that one magnificent principle. What is true religion if it isn't to establish a right relationship with God and attend to the needs of our fellow human beings? One of the New Testament writers, James, puts it this way. Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. And that's an appropriate conclusion to this week's program about human beings in great distress. Literally, the orphans, the parentless, taken advantage of by those who are polluted by the world. It's a message we should all take to heart. Now let me once again offer to send you this free special report, Runaways, Solving the Problem, and the Plain Truth magazine. This newly published special report is an in-depth look at the issues we've been discussing. It contains helpful advice for parents and children alike and shows not only the reality of the problem, but what we can all do to help. This first chapter, Getting Off the Street, shows what it's like to live on big city streets, and it shows the way toward a solution. Behind the Bright Lights tells the tragic story of Shelley, a runaway who never got the love she needed. This section focuses on child abuse, with advice if you're a victim. There are things you can do. Here's an important section on how to really love your child. It's especially helpful for new parents. And this section for teens, when running seems to be the answer, gives no-nonsense advice to young people. This special report, Runaways, Solving the Problem, offers invaluable information for parents and children alike. Be sure to request your free copy. Now, we've nothing to sell on the World Tomorrow program. All of our literature is yours free for the asking, no cost, no obligation whatsoever, and no one will call on you. And if you're not already a subscriber, we'll also be sending you a free subscription to the Plain Truth magazine. It's published in 7 languages and read by millions worldwide. And you can renew your subscription for as long as you'd like without any cost. The Plain Truth gives you insight and information you won't find anywhere else. It examines our complex world from a unique perspective, that of the Bible. Each issue contains valuable articles written to help you and your family. For example, this article, 6 Qualities of a Strong, Happy Family, describes the positive characteristics that successful families in various countries around the world have in common. This article shows how you can put into practice principles like appreciation, communication, and commitment. Even though we experience trials and difficulties from time to time, our families can remain strong and cohesive. With articles like these, I'm sure you'll find the Plain Truth magazine helpful and informative. Now, the Plain Truth, as well as this special report, Runaways Solving the Problem, are yours free for the asking, free of charge, no cost, and no obligation whatsoever. All you need to do is send your request to The World Tomorrow, Pasadena, California, 91123. That's all the address you need to receive the free literature offered on today's program. Once again, the address is The World Tomorrow, Pasadena, California, 91123. In Canada, write The World Tomorrow, Box 44, Station A, Vancouver, BC, V6C 2M2. That's The World Tomorrow, Box 44, Station A, Vancouver, BC, V6C 2M2. Now, before we close, here's a preview of what's coming up next week on The World Tomorrow. How do you help someone faced with the death of a loved one? We want to encourage them, but it's at times like these when we want to help the most, we feel the most helpless. Yet there are things we can say and do to share the burden and ease the pain. Join us next week on The World Tomorrow to see what can be done when a loved one dies. We hope to see you again next time. Thank you for joining us today. I'm David Hume for The World Tomorrow.
The preceding program and all literature were produced and sponsored by the Worldwide Church of God.